Okay, I want to welcome you guys in. I know some of you are watching this via recording. We're glad you're here. We're hoping this information can be beneficial to you as we all together get through uh, this amazing COVID-19 time. So I wanted to share with you guys the latest that Kairos is aware of with regard to oh poo, it is not letting me get to my slides. Hang on just a second. The latest Kairos knows about the CARES Act 2020, which is designed to help us at this time. Let's see. All right, I think I can go there now. So this is these slides are made by a company called Vanderbloemen. They are a large church consulting operation here in the U.S. They help a lot of churches, and this is just kind of an overview of the act and what it can do for us, for nonprofits and for churches. So a disclaimer: what Kairos will say and what's in here is reasonably accurate as of April 3, 2020. It is being written as we speak. I'm telling you, they're still, this thing is the final pieces of it are still coming together, and there's clarifications on all this from time to time. So this bill was approved by the Senate and the House. The president signed it, and it was received on March 30th. And the Small Business Administration got out these details after that point. And so, you know, who can participate in one of these? All 501c3 organizations, including churches, nonprofits, schools, and small businesses. You do not have to be a 501c3 though to qualify. If you're an LLC, if you're, you know, different states have different kind of incorporation guidelines, but they're really not. They're not requiring churches to be 501c3s. Churches can stand on their own and qualify for that. You have to be an organization under 500 employees, and other restrictions don't apply. Details of the what they're laying out here is something called the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPE, and so they're focusing on providing payroll benefits to nonprofits during this time span, because when this legislation was passed, I guess they believed, you know, we'd be back and operational by July 1. So that actually points to the fact there may be another one of these programs in the future, though, of course, you know, that is yet to be seen. This is separate from the Small Business Administration Disaster Relief Fund, but it will be administered by the SBA. And you have to apply for these funds through a local lender. And when you go to a bank, you need to find one that is aware of this program. And I understand now, listening to the earlier seminar today, the banks are just getting this information. Friday midnight was the first time you could apply for this. And there's $349 billion allocated to be loaned out to nonprofits and churches. Details that you may receive loans for the following things. It includes salary, wages and payments, health benefits, retirement benefits, or for state and local taxes, if that is part of something that is taken out of your check. It's limited to up to $100,000 annual salary for each employee. So I think for most of the people on this call, that's not going to be a problem. So a couple things, 1099 contractors, if you have any of those on as part of your something that your organization pays out, you are not allowed to take out a loan to pay those people. Housing allowances are not included in the intent of the legislation. The senator from South Carolina was specific about that. However, we are hearing some lenders are including this in the payroll costs. So when you go to your bank to take out the loan amount and you say, well, can I include my housing allowance in that or not? You're going to have to ask your particular bank that question, and they will give you an answer. And based upon the answer they give you, you're going to have to adjust your numbers accordingly. You could try a different bank if you do not like the answer you're getting. The legislation is not specific about housing allowances. And the reason is because the faith-based legislators who wrote this law did not want to draw too much attention to the housing allowance because they have been getting some pushback on this at the federal level, that they do not want, there's some people that don't want to see churches and clergy have this benefit as part of their pay package. So they avoided the word altogether to kind of, I guess, avoid the controversy or kicking up a stink that wasn't necessary. So this sheet shows how you can calculate your payroll. And so what you do is you take the average payroll for the last 12 months. You run it through. You're allowed to borrow 2.5 times the amount of your payroll for a given month. And so the reason it's 2.5 times is because that's the pay period they're expecting this to cover for us, about, I guess, 10 weeks. So there's an average of that, and that is the part that can go, that you can apply for in your loan. The amount that is, well, let me get to the distribution of that. So as far on the back end, the money borrowed from here can be used for, as you see here on the slide, mortgage, rent, utilities, and interest. It cannot cover new obligations that you would be thinking about. The interesting part of this plan, which is very appealing to us and for churches right now, and here's a delineation of what I referred to before: mortgage, rent payments, utilities, other debt obligations. You can use this money for that. And the recommendation we received is, if you were to get this loan, you might want to put this amount in a separate. You might want to open a new bank account specifically for this money coming in. And so as you paid it for payroll and other things, you could easily show from that account where, in one single account, where your funds were going. If you use this loan for other things, that portion of the loan you use, besides payments and interest and mortgage, that part of the loan will not be forgiven. And loan proceeds need to be used by June 30th to be eligible for forgiveness of the loan. So this is one of the big aspects of this loan. If you do use it, if you do use the loan according to the stipulations in the program, this loan is 100% forgivable by the federal government. And here are the qualifications that you can see here. Loan forgiveness will be reduced if you decrease salaries by more than 25% for any employee. So you see that the goal of this program is so that you would maintain the same amount of full-time employees regardless of your situation. The federal government wants to see the same amount of people on your books at the end of the year as it is now. And so this CARES Act was designed so that nonprofits and churches are able to withstand this without going under. For whatever reason, that is in the best interest of the United States right now, and they are offering that to us. And so this is amazing that though it sounds really too good to be true, this is the basis of the program. There are some slides right here that are kind of getting into some specific examples. I'll show those up, and as you watch this when it's recorded back to you, you can just pause this part of it here if you need to look at any of these slides for a longer period of time. So I want to get through these pretty quickly and bring Ron back on, and then hopefully Gina will be back on as well in a bit. Yes, no loan payments on this program are due for 6 months. No fees are included in the loan. The interest rate is 1% on the loan on a loan term of 2 years. There is no prepayment penalty or fee. They're asking to certify the loan, they're asking for a good faith certification that you're going to support ongoing operations and the funds are used to retain workers and maintain payroll. I just heard this afternoon, someone asked a question, our church is in really good shape. We have a big nest egg, rainy day fund. Should we get this? Should we be installed and enrolled in this program anyway? Just as a hedge against potential problems. If you have a significant amount of savings and your church isn't encountering any payroll issues, you probably don't need to be a part of this program, because the funds are limited. It is $349 billion, and that sounds like a lot, but it does not go as far as it used to. And they estimate that if all the small businesses and churches who should apply for this loan were to do so, that it would be over $900 billion of need out there. So if you don't need it, I would encourage you not to be a part of it, because you're allowing someone else, a nonprofit in your neighborhood, another church that you could know to be blessed by that. So think about that as you do that. The lenders will be a local banker to you. They're saying the turnaround time for application is 5 to 7 days. I imagine they're getting crushed with these loans right now. And so we pray that is the case, that it could be 5 to 7 days. So those are the big pieces of it. This is a big part of it, the Civil Rights Act. So many people are worried how does the civil rights protections that small businesses are under, are those applying to churches as well? And so this was a clarification for the United States Treasury just last night on a call. I'll just quote it. Nothing shall apply to a religious corporation, association, educational institution, or society with respect to the membership of the employment of individuals of a particular religion to perform work connected with, to perform work connected with the carrying on by such corporation, association, educational institution, or society of its religious activities. In other words, taking this loan does not in any way handcuff religious organizations to carrying out their doctrine and practices as they see fit. So this is a statement of protection from the United States Treasury that things in the past where, for example, churches by design employ people of a certain religion. We employ Christians generally to work in our churches. Based upon certain ways of reading the law, we could be excluded from receiving this money because there's a bias. We have a bias towards one religion in our hiring practices, and the U.S. Treasury is saying no, that does not apply here, and we don't have to worry about any legal problems with that aspect of it. So yeah, here's 975 billion is the amount that could be needed. Other funds may be available as in a couple months, depending on how well this program does, and obviously how well and soon the virus quits. So we'll see there. So I will stop sharing. Ron, if you want to come back on, that'd be great. Anyone else, man, feel free to come back on. That's just a quick overview of the program as best as I could do that. We are we're not CPAs. We're a bunch of ministers, like Ron said earlier. You know, give us a Greek Bible, we'd be fine, but that's not what we're dealing with today. So but we wanted to share this because we know there are a lot of plants and churches out there that could really benefit, that may be having a shortfall because perhaps your giving has dropped off quite a bit, and your own salary or the salaries of those at your church may be being threatened right now. And this could be a program that could bless you in that.
Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, that was a good overview of the slides. We've the Kairos team has been trying to follow this with other groups and stay updated. Mostly, number one, whether you feel safe or not, make sure you're communicating with your funders. You know, thank them, because a lot can change with their job situation. But thanking them for supporting you and letting them know you feel safe and you appreciate it. A second point, as Bruce mentioned, you know, some are saying we may not need this. I don't want to take this if someone else is wanting it. Actually, yeah, you need to think about the future, and you need to look at, you know, when we come out of this, which we don't know when it's going to end. We may have a vaccine by the fall, we may not, and chances are we won't. And if it hits again in the fall, we're going to be back in the same spot. So we want you to think ahead and make sure that you are prepared, and, you know, exploring the ability to gain access to funds, or even to take out a loan. If you don't use it, you can pay it back without penalty. But, you know, going through the process of, if this money is available, can we use it to make sure that, you know, we're paid. And then the third point is, you know, we're here to give you any resources. Our goal is to help you, which is the same as the government's goal. They don't want you unemployed, neither do we. We definitely know God doesn't. So there are many people who've lost their jobs, and you know, unemployment is there to help people to be okay. And I've worked with homeless people for a long time, and no one wants to be in that situation. And I'm surprised at how quickly that can happen to people. So our take is, take advantage of this if you can, if you need to, and we want to help you with that. So, you know, you can be paid, the labor is worthy to hire. And we're here to take any questions if you have any. And if you are listening to this recorded session, you can email us at any time. It'll be posted on the chats, I think. So, you know, we'll take any kind of questions and help you want.
Mm-hmm. Ron, just, you know, as an organization, as we look at it, you know, we've discussed it because we've had some shortfall that, you know, Kairos has been affected by this. We've had some funding, you know, dry up because of this. And so I don't know if it's of interest, but it might be meaningful to some folks as far as our endorsement level. I mean, we're going to apply as an institution to cover some of our shortfall. Hasn't been significant, but we've had some. And so, you know, I think the confidence I have in this program is, I mean, one, it was the co-authors of this bill were faith-based people. They worked very hard with the federal government to make sure we were included in this act. So that gives me some confidence in it. I'm also gained some confidence by the just kind of the other large church planting and church based organizations in the U.S. that have done a lot of work on this, that are endorsing it as well. And so those things and the plain language of the legislation and the connection of the relationships involved behind it are giving me confidence that the federal government's going to stand behind it. And so I am, you know, that's how I feel about it at this point. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For those who that's a good point, Bruce. And for those who are concerned, about government money, uh, I just always think about the Apostle Paul. He's in Cyprus. He's called Saul, and he's hanging out with a guy named Sergius Paulus, who's a Roman official, and then Paul starts carrying this name Paul. And you wonder where he got that from. He goes to Acts 13. He goes to Pisidian Antioch and ends up in this town of Pisidian Antioch, where Sergius Paulus had a relative in position of leadership. So if Paul's not afraid to work with the Roman government to get the gospel out, I know we can go too far with that, but I think Paul was never afraid to say, even one incident, he's like, "Hey, I'm about to get beat. Can you beat a Roman citizen?" No. Well, if he's willing to use the government to get out of a beating, I think he leaves a model for us that it's okay to use our government's acts of generosity to help people stay employed. So, I just stress to our church planners, it's not being irresponsible, it's biblical. We are in a blessed position in a country that can help out.
that's really good. Ron, just getting a couple questions on how to begin the process, and I want to share a screen here. Um, there is a great website by the Vanderbloemen people. That's VANDERBLOEMEN.com/COVID-19. And some of these links will be on our Kairos website, but also you can go there. They've really kind of led the way on this. And if you go down the page, click here for all CARES Act Paycheck Protection Program downloads and details. And if we were to go there, let's see if I can follow up on that. Are you seeing the details of CARE Act on my screen? Is that what you're seeing? Is that a yes? Okay. So this will be a series of webinars, but here's where the kind of the money is. There's some great links down here. You can download the slides I just went over. You can download a spreadsheet to calculate your CARES Act Paycheck Protection Program loan. Clarity on certain aspects, how to calculate your full-time hours. You can read the bill if you're having a hard time getting to sleep at night. You can read that bill there, and I'll put you under. But there are just the step-by-step guides. You can download a spreadsheet which shows you the things you need to have in place before you try to get the loan. So it's a very good website for that. But the process is going to begin with your local bank that knows of it. And if you walk in there, we had this yesterday. Some of our folks walked into local banks, and the bankers were like, "Yeah, we'd heard something about that. What's that about?" That wasn't like it was too encouraging. But the word's been getting out. Seems like they've been pushing stuff out to the banks. Patty, you've walked into a bank, haven't you? And
yeah. I talked to a bank on the phone, and then I actually had an appointment with a business banker yesterday. But all of this CARES Act stuff is, at least for our bank, happening online. And so far what that has looked like is that I had to fill out a form, and that put me in a queue for them to contact me later. So I'm supposed to have all the application filled out and ready to go for when that banker contacts me, which is harder to do than you think because there's still a little confusion on how to calculate some of the things. But in theory, you know, that could happen today. I expect it will take a while for them to get back because I bet a lot of people are already in line.
Patty, did you work with Gina on filling out the application, or was she kind of?
Yeah, we worked through the application together. I did not do the spreadsheet stuff, so I'm taking, you know, she's a little confused just because of what our situation is with our number of employees vacillates a little bit depending on, you know, if people are being supported through us or if they're going to their churches to be supported. So it seems like, you know, things have still been in flux just in terms of how they want you to calculate. Some of the question wording has changed even in the last few hours. So yeah, so it's still, you know, it's the bill is in place, but the wording of it is, you know, hopefully getting cemented, but has not been up to now.
And it's just an interpretation matter too of between your bank. So specifically, like on the, I addressed the housing allowance part. I suppose there's some bankers that don't even know what that is, and you'd be informing them to even ask about it. So that will.
Well, it sounds like that different banks are interpreting things different ways in terms of what months they want information from, on how many employees you have, on what your average payrolls are. Yeah, the housing allowance is a little tricky thing I came up against on ours. Just to fill out the form, you had to say if you're a sole proprietorship, a single owner, or a multiple owner company.
Yeah.
That's your choices, which of course were none of those.
Yeah. I think I remember that question being about an hour ago, and they said don't check any of those because if you're a 501, you're not any of those things. So just leave that blank was their recommendation.
Yeah, on the form, that's one thing, but to actually get in the queue for your bank, there's no option to not
Okay.
check one. So,
Gotcha. Okay.
you know, hopefully we'll talk to real people and
Mm-hmm.
that we can treat each other like real people and can figure it out together.
Mm-hmm. What a concept. The one of the recommendations, I appreciated it after early afternoon. Just, you know, everyone's having a bad week, right? And so when we do approach these banks, you know, if they don't know what they're doing, you know, give them some mercy. I mean, they're playing catch up. We're all playing catch up. So, you know, let's be good witnesses of Jesus, loving those people, support them. Those are people we could be blessing, you know, as we go about this. I thought that was just a good reminder.
So Patty, just to ask, so we're kind of up and running with this for Kairos.
We are in the queue. We've
Okay.
got our paperwork filled out, but we're just waiting for a banker to contact us.
Efficiency, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Daryl, good to see you, man.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah. Is this something you guys are gonna need some interest in? Do you have any idea of that, or?
Well, we haven't had a discussion on it yet. I'm just watching this kind of on behalf of my elders right now, but I'm sure they'll be interested to find out more about it. So,
I mean, so I guess technically it opened at midnight, but no one was seeing a banker at midnight. And so, you know, it just began this morning. And I guess there'll be an initial crush, and I guess they'll be through the weekend. Then Monday, I would think it'll be, you know, hit pretty significantly too. But yeah, I have no sense of the demand on the church end. So I was just on a call where there were 3,100 people listening to a webinar on this, and I thought, well, how many churches are there in America? There's about between 300,000 and 400,000 churches in America, and I thought, well, that's 1% of that number. But that seminar I was on was also for nonprofits as well. So I don't know how well churches are aware of this. I don't know what the church need is for this. My sense is that giving has dropped. Of the established churches I've talked to, giving has definitely dropped because many people, they're just used to bringing their checkbook with them to church and they sign it right there, as the prayer's going on and the plate as it goes by. And so they have not been contributing yet. And so there's been some drop off here. A lot of our churches, some, have electronic giving, but some do not. And so, and some have recurring giving, some do not. So I would think still is a pretty big hit here amongst at some level. And if churches have, if churches have facilities that they are paying for, this is a big deal, for them. This is where they're feeling it. So I hope we can get this word out there so that it can bless some churches and ministers, because our community needs our ministers hired right now. They do not need them going away. These are community servants, and so whatever we can to get this word out to keep everybody up and going, do that. Gina, is that you on the other end?
Yes, it is.
Glad to have you with us. We're just recording this for those who couldn't come in right now. Gina, anything you want to say about the application process? I went over the slides initially, and we've just kind of been chirping in here and there on things of particular interest.
You've probably covered it all. I mean, the application did change last night, so it is different today than it was yesterday.
Okay.
And so I had filled everything out yesterday, and then I had to change it today. The most important thing to me today that I have been going around and around about is that the application says number of employees, but the Vanderblumen Group is coaching us to put in number of FTEs. And, I don't know what they want.
Right.
And the 941s, which all the banks in Arkansas are expecting you to hand in with this to prove that your salary is correct, they, on them, it says number of employees. And so that leads me to think that the number on your application is supposed to match what's on your 941s. But that's not what the Vanderblumen Group is hinting at all. They want you to calculate FTEs.
Right.
And then the other thing that is confusing is they're asking for the most recent 12 months salary average. And no one wants to calculate that, because anyone who uses a payroll company, you can't do that. You do it by years. And so everyone is wanting to use the full 2019 year instead of March of 2019 through the other. And so they just encourage you to call your bank and ask your bank what the bank, and so the bank will tell you which 12 months you want to average.
Gina, can you give us a ballpark on how long it took you to fill out the application and get all the pieces you needed to do this?
Oh, the application is very brief. It doesn't take long at all if you know what you're doing. And
Gina, I think you got muted again. Maybe you did on purpose. I wasn't sure. You were having computer problems yesterday. So. Well, that's good to hear. Any other questions? Joe, I'm curious, have you talked to like nonprofits in your neighborhood? Have you heard anything from those? I mean, I know you can't go down the street and talk to them now, but
Well, when you said like going into a bank, I was like, what? Are you crazy? You're going in places? Are you kidding me? What's the deal? I mean, we barely left our house, let alone the neighborhood. So But I mean, that's just kind of Boston for you, you know.
Yep.
Everything's so neighborhood focused. Everything's right here. But
Well,
no, I haven't
know
really
the
spoken
East
to a
End.
lot of them.
I know the East End. There's not a bank you can there's not a bank in East Boston you can walk into anyway. So you got
That's right.
That's right.
so
Yeah, I know. I could drive up the road, but you know, anyhow, and that's what you have to do right now. There's only drive-throughs open, so or limited hours on bank. As far as nonprofits, I don't really know. A lot of some of the nonprofits I know, like there's a music group in town. Like they've continued to offer classes, the same thing that they've always done, after school stuff, you know. So I don't know how much like people have asked for refunds, sort of thing, how they're really struggling, because it was probably already paid in at the beginning of the year. So I don't know if they're one of the bigger nonprofits in the neighborhood. But yeah, if it's just affecting employees, it would be a limited number of types of nonprofits, because a lot of nonprofits around here are just like run by volunteers, that sort of thing.
very good. Well, any other questions? Any other comments? Anyone wants to add?
Yes, I just added mine. Just one about paperwork, what all's required.
Gina, can you come on and answer what paperwork's required for the application?
I'm trying. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
I can. Thank you.
It's different from bank to bank of what
Hmm.
is required. I am working right now with 3 different banks, and so I know that all 3 of them are different. So you will need the application. You will need most likely your 941s for all 4 quarters of either last. Okay, did you hear that?
4 quarters of,
941s, most
Okay.
likely.
okay.
Some of the banks are requiring a documentation of who you are, like are you an officer, so they want some kind of an official document that says you're an officer. Other banks are just saying as long as you're a signatory on their account, then you're fine.
Okay.
And so you have to check with the bank itself.
Hmm.
Now you have to know the date that you were incorporated.
Okay.
Patty, is there anything else for Chase? Okay.
Yeah, she's muted.
Sorry. Yeah, just you need to know your business address, date of incorporation, and then the other stuff that Gina mentioned.
Very good. Well, I'll wind this up. If you guys have any other, I'll stop the recording at least. And
I will say one more thing about the application itself. Can you hear me?
yes,
There is a section of it that asks you to list all your owners of the applicant. The applicant is your organization or church. It's not you personally. And as a church or as a nonprofit, you do not have owners, is what we were told according to Vanderbloemen. And so you put not applicable in that place.
thanks, Gina. Yeah, we were talking about that opening distinction on the app too the other day. Patty said, "Yeah, that works great in the app, but when you're in an online queue for the when you're an online queue, you do have to show that." So, very good. All right, we'll stop the recording. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to hit us later. And
Hey,
we're
Bruce.
here for business. Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
Hey, don't forget to save the chat, because we've got some of the questions in there, and
Okay.
the Vanderbloemen website link as well.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right.